I'm doing this video so you can see just what time it is, but so that you can also be connected and stay updated with the world around you. Now, when I saw this, I thought it was very telling, and I wanted to do a report on this real quick. Now, last week we saw what happened in Belgium, and then, of course, we saw what happened with the Temple of Bel to be placed in New York and in London, as well as other cities. But now this, because now what's going on is the Feast of Beltane, and I'm going to tell you why this feast is so important and what this has to do with future implications and what's to come within this next month. Now, is it a coincidence or surprise that the Temple of Bel is going to be erected around the same time of this feast, which is on April 30th through May 1st, and also all the paganisms that go with it? Not looking like it, but it says, and I'm at the Wicca website. It says that many Wiccans and pagans celebrate Beltane. It is one of 8 solar sabbats, or Sabbaths. This holiday incorporates traditions from the Gaelic Beltane, such as the bonfire, but it bears more relation to the Germanic May Day festival. So, of course, it's celebrated around May in the spring, both in its significance focusing on fertility and its rituals such as maypole dancing. Such traditions celebrate this holiday or so-called holiday on May 1st or May Day, while others begin their celebration on the eve before or April 30th. Beltane has long been celebrated with feasts and rituals. The name means fire of Bel, and we've been hearing a lot about Bel with BELgium in the Temple of Bel, haven't we? And Belinos being one name for the sun god, okay, whose coronation feast we now celebrate. As summer begins, weather becomes warmer and the plant world blossoms. An exuberant mood prevails. In old Celtic traditions, like it was a time of unabashed sexuality and promiscuity, where marriages of a year and a day could be undertaken, but it is rarely observed in that manner in modern times. In the old Celtic times, young people would spend the entire night in the woods a-maying and then dance around the phallic maypole the next morning. Phallic, what does the maypole represent? Nimrod, the sun god. I hope you're seeing this. This is real serious stuff. Older married couples were allowed to remove their wedding rings and the restrictions they imply for this one night. May morning is a magical time for wild water, dew, flowing streams, and springs, which is collected and used to bathe in for beauty or to drink for health. It goes on to say the Christian religion had only a poor substitute for the life-affirming maypole, namely the death-affirming cross. Hence, in the Christian calendar, this was celebrated as Rudmas. In Germany, it was the feast of Saint Walpurga or Walpurgisnacht. An alternative date around May 5th, or Old Beltane, when the sun reaches 15 degrees Taurus, is sometimes employed by covens. Both Lady Day and Ostara are names incorrectly assigned to this holiday by some modern traditions of Wicca. And it goes on to talk about the different festivals that would go on with Maypole as well as with Beltane. Now, this is very important that you're seeing this. I'm going to tell you some of the very eerie symbolisms as well as the so-called coincidences that take place during this time at the end of April and at the beginning of May, but especially around this time. And like I said, it's no surprise that they would have BELgium happen on 322, which is a very occultic number for the occult, not to mention the Temple of Bel to be built in both America and England, as well as other places next month. And we have this as well, the Feast of Beltane. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Oh, but it gets worse than that. Here I am at About Religion, and it talks about all about Beltane. As you can see, it says celebrating the fertility of spring, because what else are they going to do? I wonder what they're really celebrating, because it says April showers have given way to rich and fertile earth, and as the land greens, there are few celebrations as representative of fertility as Beltane. Fertility, Isis, Ishtar. Observed on May 1st or October 31st to November 1st for our Southern Hemisphere readers, festivities typically begin the evening before on the last night of April. It's a time to welcome the abundance of the fertile earth and a day that has a long and sometimes scandalous history. Depending on your tradition, there are a number of ways you can celebrate what they call the Sabbat. It goes on to rituals and ceremonies, so there are different rituals you can do. But I have to tell you, there are other customs you can do as well. There are prayers, a maypole dance, and this one's the most important, the Beltane bonfire ritual, because you're going to see just how this relates to what's been going on and just what time it really is. So be very alert, be very aware. And it says they have customs and folklore of this tradition. And who's the Greek god? Pan? Oh, just like Lucifer, the sun god. And now it's all starting to make sense. And of course, it has the Beltane magic and chocolate and sex and the season of fertility and fire. So you can find all this information here, but I'm letting you know that there's a bigger agenda behind all this. And why now of all time? Lately, that's all you've been hearing. BELgium, the Temple of Bel, and now this? Oh, but it gets much worse, and you're just about to see what I'm talking about. Remember, nothing is ever a coincidence. Always keep that in mind. And here I am at the end of The American Dream by Michael Schneider, and it says, Happy Beltane, Temple of Baal in New York is going up just before Baal's biggest day of the year. And this was today, actually. It says, is it just a coincidence that reproductions of the 48-foot tall arch that stood in front of the Temple of Baal in Palmyra, Syria, are going to be put up in Times Square in New York City and Trafalgar Square in London exactly 13 days before Baal's biggest day of the year? And what's the biggest day? The Feast of Beltane. Exactly 13 days before. Is that a coincidence? Not looking like it, folks. It goes on to say, in the occult world, 13 is the number of rebellion, and these archers are going to be put on display precisely 13 days prior to the major occult holiday of Beltane on May 1st. And he talks about the Bel and the Temple of Bel because he's done a few articles. You can also watch my video last week that talks more about this, but it goes on to say from a Wiccan, and according to Wiccans, it's named after the Celtic sun god Bel or Baal or Baal. Also means Baal, to banish, as in the Baal fires, which are lit on Beltane to cleanse and purify. Human child sacrifices. That's exactly where you get that from. And we also know that Baal means Lord. That's where that title comes from. It goes on to say that it's the second most important, what they consider Sabbath in the witches' calendar after Samhain. It's the festival of the fire god Bel. We know that, and we know that a lot of occultic things go on with this so-called holiday, as I call it, because, and this even shows you the calendar that it's on. So Ostara just happened, which is mostly associated with Easter, and now it's Beltane, all spring so-called holidays. That's exactly what this is, and it involves lots of sex and lots of fire sacrifices. I hope you're listening and heeding the warnings, because there's so much implication with this one event. But it goes on to say, in Magic in Theory, Aleister Crowley explained why small children are often chosen for occult sacrifices. Be very alert and very aware. It was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of this animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the highest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. Be very alert and aware. And then it goes on to talk about, of course, the fertility, the maypole as well, that we just talked about, and I'll leave the links below so that you can see it. We know that bisexual orgies take place. A lot of sex takes place. Not to mention that May 1st is more commonly known as May Day. It is a major holiday for communists and socialists, as it is also the date on which the Bavarian Illuminati was formed in 1776. Remember, I've done a ton of posts about 1776 and why this year is so important. The capping of the New World Order. It's going to mark 240 years exactly on that day since the New World Order, the Illuminati, had even been founded and started up. Is that a coincidence? Not only that, but this past Christmas was the full moon Christmas, the ninth one in American history. Is that a coincidence? 239 years, 923. Are we seeing the symbolism? I hope so, because nothing is ever a coincidence, ever. I hope you're seeing this big time, because this is a big red flag. But it goes on to say, leading up to Beltane is a 13-day period. So leading up to Beltane is a 13-day period of time that also appears to have special occult significance. That is something I wrote about the other day, but I wanted to explore this a little bit more. And this is April 19th. April 19th is a very significant event or day to the occult. Now, will anything happen at this April and May? I don't know. Only time will tell. But I just want you to be aware of what's going on, because there's too much going on right now for people to be asleep to this stuff. And I hope you're awoke. But April 19th all the way through May 1st is a satanic so-called holidays or holidays that go on throughout the entire during that entire time. You're going that April 19th is also embedded with ancient Roman religion around this time, where that 13-day period gives festivals to Ceres as well as to who? The sun god, to Ceres and all the other ones, to Bel and Semiramis. Nothing new under the sun. Ancient mystery, Babylonian religion all over again. Satanism all over again. So it goes on to talk about what goes on April 19th, which means inaugurates a period of blood sacrifice to the beast. And it goes on all the way where they honor the sun god and goddess with druids and initiation, sex orgies, drunken revelry, and human sacrifices. Be very careful. Sacrifice by fire is required by pagan, occult, and satanic elements on April 19th, all the way up until May 1st. So what I'm telling you is that a lot of occult things go on during this period of time between April 19th and May 1st. And if you don't believe me, you're going to believe the world events. Could there be another one? We'll find out soon enough. Now, I'm here at Advent of Deception, and the reason that I'm here is because I want to tell you all the importance of what's about to happen and the importance of these dates. Now, am I saying anything is going to happen but during this time? I don't know, but we need to keep an eye out and be aware and stay awoke, because like I said, it's no surprise that on March 22nd or 3/22, the same organization behind Skull and Bones, which is behind 9/11, that they have what? The BELgium attacks, BELgium, and then they announced just a couple days later that they're erecting the Temple of Bel in both London and New York and other places, and now this? Like I said, it's only a matter of time. We need to be alert and awoke all the time. But these are some major important occult events that occur or have occurred between April 19th and May 1st. And you're going to see just what it says. So, of course, the Mexico oil fire, as well as Waco and other different things. So I'm going to go to the list right now. And of course, this talks about the Beltane Festival and what goes on there. And we kind of already went over that. But here, I want to show you historic dates that were staged and according to this blood sacrifice day of April 19th. So April 19th, 1775 was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which made the Masonic-led Revolutionary War inevitable. We have April 19th, 1904, which was the Great Fire of Toronto. April 18th, 1906, the San Francisco earthquake fire. April 19th, 1943, after trapping the last Jewish resistance fighters in a storm drain in Warsaw and holding them for several days, Nazi stormtroopers began to pour fire into each end of the storm drain using flamethrowers. They continued pouring the fire into the drain until all fighters were dead. Blood sacrifice brought about by a fiery conflagration. And then we have April 20th, 1985 through April 20th, 1985, the ATF raid on the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord compound in northern Arkansas. And we have April 19th, 1993, 50 years later after the 1943 Warsaw to the day, government troops, tanks, and other military equipment stormed the compound of David Koresh and his followers at Waco, Texas. Certainly, this operation fulfilled the basic requirements of a human sacrifice, trauma, fire, and young sacrificial victims. And of course, we cannot forget April 19th, 1995, Oklahoma City bombing. Once again, fire and death on this day. April 20th, 1999, the Columbine High School massacre. April 19th, 2005, Joseph Eloy Ratzinger elected as Pope Benedict XVI. April 20th, 2007, Johnson Space Center shooting and incident of hostages in Building 41. April 19th, 2010, in Canada, over 400 of straw bales caught on fire and blazed out of control. And then we also had on April 19th, 2010, Iceland's volcanic ash grounds all airlines in Northern Europe while NATO conducts the largest military exercise of the year. And then April 20th, 2010, the Gulf oil fire. Now, of course, some of this could have been hoaxes. or scares, just like they try to let us know, and that's even been documented as well. But the reason I'm going over this, like I said, will anything happen this year? I don't know, but this is something to be looking out for. This is something to pay attention to. Like I said, it's no coincidence that they have BELgium occur on March 22nd, which, by the way, was exactly 130 days after the so-called Paris attacks. And then right after that, they have the Temple of Bel to be built all over. And now they have what? They're getting ready for the Feast of Beltane. I hope you all are seeing the implications with this and seeing that there's a lot of stuff going on here, folks. You can't even ignore it anymore. There's just too much going on, and hopefully your eyes, both your spiritual eyes, are awoke by now. Please, please, please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, because time is running out. Bel is literally here. The sun god is here, being reverenced and worshipped all over. And the question is, are you awoke to this stuff, and are you aware? Because there's just too much going on. But I just wanted to keep you all updated. Wanted to make an urgent report. This is Truth Unveiled here. Shalom.